Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If copy system in Naruto. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name in the description below. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 251, It's Quite Safe Here. Obito stood atop a building in Konoha, gazing at the village he once loved, now devoid of any emotion. Summoning Jutsu. With a single hand seal, the nine-tailed fox, previously rampaging behind Hokage Rock, was summoned to the heart of Konoha. Obito's ability to summon the nine-tails should be related to Madara Uchiha. Madara Uchiha once forcibly turned the nine-tails into his summoning beast in order to deal with Hashirama Senju. Then, Madara Uchiha and the Nine-Tails were both beaten to a pulp by Hashirama Senju. Looking at the raging Nine-Tails, Obito used his Mangekyo Sharingan to control it. Normally, a single Mangekyo Sharingan wouldn't be enough to control the Nine-Tails, but Obito, having Hashirama's cells, possessed amplified ocular power enough to exert temporary control. Finally. I've been waiting so long. Shin, Kushina, and Mei Terumi sat atop the Hokage Rock, observing the rampaging Nine-Tails. So that's the Nine-Tails. I wonder how strong it is. Mei Terumi asked curiously, staring at the massive beast. Average. I could crush it without even using my hands, Shin replied casually. It does look scary, but I could probably beat it up, Kushina added, echoing Shin's confidence. If you two say so, then I guess I could probably fight it to a draw, Mei Terumi said, trying to join in. Shin looked at her and shook his head. You're overestimating yourself. Kushina could probably beat the Nine-Tails, but you'd get crushed. You don't think I could win? Mei Terumi gave him a challenging look. The Nine-Tails is the strongest of the tailed beasts. Don't underestimate it, Shin explained, chuckling softly. Kushina could handle the Nine-Tails because of her sealing jutsu. The Uzumaki clan's powerful techniques, combined with her strength, made subduing the beast possible. Mei Terumi, however, lacked that advantage. Lava release and boil release were effective against humans, but not tailed beasts. Even with Sage Mode, she will struggle against the Nine-Tails. Fine, whatever you say. Mei Terumi looked down, though she clearly wasn't convinced. It seems that Obito Uchiha is still showing mercy to Konoha. Shin observed, watching the Nine-Tails rampage. If Obito used a tailed beast ball now, Konoha would suffer devastating losses. No one could defend against it at this moment, and the villagers hadn't evacuated yet. It would be the perfect time to strike, yet Obito hadn't. Shin suspected he still had some lingering attachment to Konoha. We'll just watch from here. It's safe here. No sooner had he spoken than the Nine-Tails roared, gathering yin and yang chakra into a black sphere before swallowing it whole and unleashing a massive chakra beam directly at the Hokage Rock. What the hell? A tailed beast bomb? Shin cursed under his breath. He just said it was safe, and now they were being targeted. He could feel Kushina and Mei Terumi staring at him, which made him slightly embarrassed. I told you, it's safe here. Black chakra enveloped them, forming a massive, armored Susanoo that effortlessly blocked the tailed beast bomb. See? Perfectly safe. Shin grinned at Kushina and Mei Terumi from within the Susanoo. It is, indeed. Mei Terumi looked at Shin's Susanoo with envy. She wished she had such a powerful, versatile technique. Why wasn't she an Uchiha? With her talent, she was certain she could awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan. Of course, awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan required more than just talent. Why would the Nine-Tails attack us? Is Obito controlling it? Kushina was furious. This felt like an unprovoked attack. She wanted payback. I'm not sure. Did Obito spot me? Shin wondered. He didn't think Obito could see them from his current location. It was night, Obito was too far away. Obito was indeed unaware of Shin's presence. He had targeted the Hokage Rock because it was an important symbol of Konoha, a representation of the village's spirit and history. He wanted to destroy it. However, his tailed beast bomb had no effect, blocked by something unseen. Obito didn't have time to investigate. Minato had arrived. Facing the furious Hokage, Obito was struggling. "Who exactly are you? Why are you wearing a mask?" Minato Namikaze asked coldly. Minato and Obito were currently facing off in an abandoned training ground. Obito had fled there, with Minato in pursuit. Obito remained silent, he couldn't reveal his identity. "I am Uchiha Madara." He used Madara's name once more, and Minato froze, startled. "Uchiha Madara?" Minato stared at him intently. Uchiha Madara was dead, a fact known throughout the shinobi world. Even if he was still alive, he must be very old. The masked man was clearly young, so Minato didn't believe him. Glancing at the rampaging Nine Tails, Minato decided to capture the masked man first, then he'd learn the truth. He threw a flying thunder god kunai, but Obito didn't dodge, letting it pass right through him. Minato teleported behind Obito and attacked with the Rasengan, but the attack phased through Obito, harmless. Spacetime Ninjutsu? Chapter 252, Obito escapes. Minato stared at the masked man, analyzing the flaws in his abilities, searching for a weakness. He believed no jutsu was invincible. Rasengan. He attacked again, but the Rasengan passed harmlessly through Obito. This time, however, Minato's attack created an opening. Obito seized the opportunity, lunging forward with a kunai aimed at Minato's back. The kunai connected, but the Minato he struck vanished in a puff of smoke. "Damn it! I've been tricked." Obito knew he'd been tricked. But it was too late. The real Minato appeared behind him, slamming a Rasengan into Obito's back. Boom! Obito was sent flying, his body rolling across the ground. "So, your intangibility fails when you attack, doesn't it?" Minato looked at Obito, a knowing glint in his eyes. Compared to Minato, Obito's combat experience was far worse. "When did you use the Shadow Clone Jutsu?" Obito asked coldly after getting to his feet. The Minato he had attacked had been a shadow clone. The real Minato had used that feigned attack to create an opening. Obito's Kamui intangibility had weaknesses. He couldn't attack while intangible because he was phasing through another dimension. To attack, he had to become tangible. He could only maintain intangibility for 5 minutes. Continuous attacks for 5 minutes could break through it. Minato, in a short time, had discovered one of Kamui's weaknesses, a testament to his skill. Minato ignored Obito's question and used the Flying Thunder God technique to close the distance. He had to get rid of this masked man as quickly as possible. There was still a rampaging Ninetales on the other side. Obito used Kamui intangibility again. Obito was starting to realize this was his only reliable technique. He could use Wood Release, but his skill was rudimentary, and he hadn't mastered Madara's other jutsu yet. Relying on Kamui was fine, but it had already failed him twice, once against Shin Uzumaki, and now, this time. Damn it! Has the Ninetales broken free? As Obito activated Kamui, he sensed the Ninetales was no longer under his control. This was understandable. His ocular power was waning. Controlling the Ninetales had been a strain. Using Kamui further depleted his chakra. Maintaining control for so long with a single Mangekyo Sharingan was already impressive. Fourth Hokage, you should focus on the Ninetales. Obito looked at Minato and left directly using Kamui, not planning to continue to entangle with Minato Namikaze. After fighting for a while, Obito knew that he could not do anything to Minato, and even if he continued to fight, there would be danger. So after weighing the pros and cons, Obito chose to slip away. Minato hesitated. He had secretly left a Flying Thunder God mark on Obito, so pursuing him was possible. But glancing at the rampaging Ninetales, Minato abandoned that idea. Given Obito's spacetime ninjutsu, pursuing him might be futile. The Ninetales was the priority. The beast's destructive power, now unchecked, posed a grave threat to Konoha. Minato used the Flying Thunder God technique to leave, heading to assist the other Konoha shinobi. Shin, having seen the original work, knew Obito wouldn't gain an advantage against Minato. Your teacher is always your teacher. The current Obito could not defeat Minato Namikaze even if he used all his means. As expected of the strongest tailed beast, Mei Terumi said, awestruck by the Ninetales' destructive power. She finally understood why Shin had said she was no match for the beast. With a body that big, it has to have some destructive power. Shin said to Mei Terumi. Tailed beasts were forces of nature. Average shinobi were helpless against them. This was evident in the Konoha shinobi's struggle against the rampaging Ninetales. Even elite Jonin's attacks were just scratching an itch. Hiruzen Sarutobi could only contain the Ninetales, and there was no way to deal with it. The Ninetales is preparing a tailed beast bomb, Kushina said, pointing at the swirling chakra gathering in the Ninetales' maw. This time, the target wasn't them, but Konoha itself. Konoha's going to have a hard time blocking that, aren't they? Kushina muttered. A tailed beast bomb could level mountains. As the tailed beast bomb hurtled toward Konoha, Hiruzen and the other shinobi felt despair. Then, Minato arrived. Flying Thunder God guiding thunder. With the Flying Thunder God technique, Minato redirected the tailed beast bomb away from Konoha. He teleported it outside the village, where it obliterated several mountains. As long as Konoha was safe, the damage was acceptable. Minato, you're finally here. Hiruzen sighed in relief. Not just him, but all the Konoha shinobi felt reassured by Minato's arrival. He was their leader, a beacon of hope. Sandaime-sama, we need to seal the Ninetales, Minato said grimly. This wasn't just a disaster for Konoha, but for him personally as well. Yes. Hiruzen Sarutobi originally wanted to ask if the masked man had been caught, but now there was no time to ask this question. Sandaime-sama, we can't let the Ninetales continue rampaging. Is there a way to force it out of the village? Minato Namikaze asked. In fact, he wanted to use the Flying Thunder God technique to teleport the Ninetales away, but he lacked the chakra. He could teleport a person, but not a behemoth like the Ninetales. Let me try. Hiruzen stepped forward, gripping his adamantine staff. Enma, I need your help. Adamantine staff extend. The staff extended like Sun Wukon's Rui Jingu Bang, pushing against the Ninetales and forcing it out of the village. The force required for such a feat was immense. Chapter 253, Dead Demon Consuming Seal. Hiruzen Sarutobi, having exhausted himself pushing the Ninetales out of Konoha, watched as Minato used the Flying Thunder God technique to pursue the beast. They couldn't risk it returning. Minato's mission was to keep the Ninetales occupied outside the village. Hiruzen, after catching his breath, led the remaining Konoha shinobi to support Minato. The shinobi deployed were all elite. Shunin and Genin weren't involved in direct combat. Their mission was to evacuate the villagers to safety. Konoha is done for this time. That beast is too strong for them, Mei Terumi said grimly, watching the Ninetales rampage. Looking at the strength of the Ninetales, Mei Terumi felt that even if three of her went together, she would not be able to do anything to the Ninetales. How can you be so sure? Konoha has its ways of handling tailed beasts, though the price will be steep. Shin said. There were three main methods for dealing with tailed beasts: the Sharingan, wood release, and sealing jutsu. Konoha wouldn't use the Sharingan. Even if they had a Sharingan user capable of controlling the Ninetales, neither Hiruzen nor Minato would allow it. As for wood release, though Yamato might possess it, he was still a child, and his wood release was a weaker version. This left only sealing jutsu. Let's get a closer look. The Ninetales, having been pushed outside Konoha, was no longer visible from Hokage Rock. Shin placed his hands on Kushina and Mei Terumi, teleporting them outside the village, where they hovered in midair. We're flying? Mei Terumi looked at Shin with astonishment. What's so surprising about that? Shin was used to it. For average shinobi, flight was a distant dream, but in the shinobi world a select few could achieve it. Can you teach me? Mei Terumi asked shyly. I can't. Shin wasn't being stingy, he genuinely couldn't teach her. He was using repulsive force to levitate, an ability only possible with the Rinnegan, or Tensegan. Mei Terumi didn't have either. Reaching 6 paths level would grant her flight, but that was as difficult as obtaining the Rinnegan. Other methods involved jutsu like Inoki's lightweight rock technique, which Shin hadn't bothered to copy. It simply wasn't useful to him. Too bad, Mei Terumi sighed, disappointed. Shin's gaze was on the Ninetales. At this time, the Ninetales was killing wantonly. Neither the Jonin nor the elite Jonin could withstand a single blow from the Ninetales. Minato could evade its attacks, but his own attacks were ineffective. Against humans, Minato's strength was impressive, but against a tailed beast, his Rasengan was a mere tickle. The Ninetales, however, couldn't land a blow on Minato. Sandaime-sama, this isn't working. I'm going to use that jutsu, Minato said grimly, approaching Hiruzen. His chakra was almost depleted, he had to end this. Hiruzen knew what Minato meant, the dead demon consuming seal and Uzumaki clan forbidden sealing technique. It summoned the Shinigami, which severed the target's soul and devoured it, sealing it away permanently. The cost was the user's own soul. It was supposed to be an unbreakable seal, but later in the Naruto timeline it became possible to undo it. Shin had acquired the technique but never learned it. He had no intention of using such a suicidal jutsu. Minato, let me do it. You're still young. No, Sandaime-sama. I've made up my mind. Please, take care of my and Akiko's child. Minato's resolve was unshakable. Hiruzen looked at Minato, and finally opened his mouth but said nothing. After all, he really didn't want to die. If there was really no other way, Hiruzen would sacrifice himself for Konoha, but now there was someone willing to sacrifice himself, so Hiruzen didn't fight for it. I'll name my son Naruto, after the character in Jiraiya-sensei's novel. Minato, let me help you. Akiko Uzumaki suddenly appeared. Akiko, are you all right? Minato rushed to her side, worry etched on his face. Akiko didn't answer. Having the tailed beast extracted was a death sentence for most, but Akiko, as an Uzumaki, still clung to life, though not for long. Adamantine sealing chains. Akiko used the Uzumaki clan sealing technique, binding the rampaging Ninetales. Sandaime-sama, please bring Naruto here. Minato's voice was firm. Minato, are you planning to? Hiruzen realized Minato intended to make his newborn son the Ninetales Jinchuriki. It's the only way. Consider it a gift from a neglectful father. Minato said. If used correctly, the Ninetales' power was a powerful asset. He believed his son could control it. He didn't know what kind of life Naruto would face. If he knew, would he regret this decision? Hiruzen nodded. Making Minato's son the Jinchuriki was beneficial to Konoha. And only an Uzumaki could properly contain the Ninetales. Minato's son, having Uzumaki blood, was a suitable vessel. Naruto was brought to them. Minato, seeing Akiko had restrained the Ninetales, didn't hesitate. He began forming the hand seals for the dead demon consuming seal. Sealing jutsu, dead demon consuming seal. A massive, spectral figure, the Shinigami, appeared behind Minato. The Ninetales, sensing the danger, roared in fury. Chapter 254, want to share the spoils afterwards? Shin stared intently at the Shinigami. He could sense 6 paths level power emanating from it. Kushina was also curiously staring at the Shinigami. Although she knew about the dead demon consuming seal, this was the first time Kushina had seen someone use it. After all, unless it was absolutely necessary, who would use this kind of sealing technique that would take their own life? So that creepy thing is the Shinigami? Just looking at it makes me uncomfortable, Kushina said, a shiver running down her spine. She felt like her soul was being scrutinized. It has 6 paths level power, Shin said. He was curious about the Shinigami's origins. The original story never explained it. At this time, the Shinigami moved, its spectral blade slicing through the Ninetales. Half of the beast's chakra was sealed. Minato sealed the other half within his newborn son. Before being sealed, the Ninetales lashed out with its claws, piercing Minato and Akiko, a final act of defiance, though it hardly mattered, they were already dying. Minato Namake's soul was devoured by the Shinigami, and then the Shinigami raised its head and glanced in Shin's direction. Oh! It noticed me. Shin was surprised. He suspected the Shinigami wasn't a living being, but something akin to a puppet. Who controlled it? Perhaps Hagoromo Otsutsuki, or perhaps his brother, Hamura. Shin was certain Hagoromo was still alive, but he wasn't sure about Hamura. If Hamura was still alive, he would have appeared when Shin destroyed the Otsutsuki clan on the moon. Shin dismissed the thought. It was pointless to speculate. The Shinigami vanished, and Shin didn't make a move to keep this Shinigami. He could easily summon the Shinigami himself if he needed to, by controlling a puppet with his Rinnetensegan and having it perform the dead demon-consuming seal. The Ninetales incident is over, and the system didn't even issue a mission. Shin muttered to himself. Originally, Shin thought that the system might issue a mission this time, but nothing. He still hadn't figured out the rules for the system to issue missions. It felt like issuing missions was really random. Hiruzen cradled the infant Naruto, his gaze fixed on Minato and Akiko's bodies, grief etched on his face. This had been a devastating blow to Konoha, not just the physical damage, but the loss of their Hokage. Don't publicize the matter about the fourth son, Hiruzen Sarutobi said seriously to the surrounding shinobi. Yes, Saname-sama. Danzo, where were you when Konoha was in danger? Hiruzen sighed, thinking of Danzo-s in action. With such a big movement, Hiruzen would definitely not believe it if Danzo said he didn't know. Not a single member of the Root organization came over. Obviously Danzo was doing it on purpose. Just as he thought of Danzo, the man arrived, flanked by Root members. Am I late? Danzo asked, looking at Minato's body with a deceptively calm expression. Inwardly, he was ecstatic. Minato's death meant he had a chance to become the next Hokage. He had almost given up hope, given Minato's age. He didn't know how long he would be in the Hokage position. Now that Minato was dead, Danzo's heart was once again hopeful. This time he was determined to win the position of Hokage. Danzo didn't believe that anyone else could compete with him. Danzo, where were you? Hiruzen questioned Danzo sternly, his voice sharp. Glancing at Hiruzen. Danzo had already thought of his excuse, I was evacuating the villagers. Is there a problem? Danzo said to Hiruzen with a calm face. Hiruzen was furious at Danzo, a high-level combatant, had chosen to evacuate villagers instead of fighting the Ninetales? He couldn't fault Danzo for prioritizing the villagers, though. Is that Minato Namake's son, the new Ninetales Jinchuriki? Danzo's gaze was on the crying Naruto. His true motive for coming was to gain control of the Jinchuriki. Though absent during the attack, he had been well informed. Hiruzen looked at Danzo. What do you want? He knew Danzo too well. Hiruzen knew that Danzo would never say meaningless things. Mentioning Naruto definitely had something to do. Hiruzen, entrust the Ninetales Jinchuriki to Root. Only we can properly train him to be a weapon for Konoha. Danzo said his purpose. He had done nothing during the crisis, and now he wanted to share a piece of the pie afterwards. Disgusting. If Shin had been there, he would have slapped Danzo senseless, but Hiruzen wouldn't do that. Danzo, Naruto is the fourth son. What do you think he is? Hiruzen questioned Danzo angrily. A Jinchuriki is just a tool for the village, Danzo said coldly. He wasn't wrong. Except for Kumogakure, most villages treated their Jinchuriki as weapons. Kumogakure was different because Killer Bee was the fourth Raikage's adopted brother. Danzo, give up. I won't hand Minato's son over to you. Don't even think about it. Hiruzen said firmly, his eyes narrowed dangerously. Danzo, sensing Hiruzen's resolve, knew he wouldn't get Naruto. But he hadn't given up. He turned to another matter, the Hokage position. Konoha couldn't remain leaderless. This, after all, was his true objective. Chapter 255, I don't want to be the scapegoat. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes at Danzo. He knew exactly what Danzo was after, the Hokage position. And because he knew Danzo so well, he wouldn't let him have his way. I will temporarily assume the role of Hokage until a suitable successor is found, Hiruzen announced, dashing Danzo's hopes. Danzo's previously expressionless face immediately turned gloomy. Hiruzen, you should know what I want, right? He couldn't believe Hiruzen was feigning ignorance. Why? Why was it so difficult for him to become Hokage? Danzo, your personality isn't suited for the Hokage position. Entrusting Konoha to you would be disastrous. Hiruzen acknowledged Danzo's abilities, but his extreme methods were unsuitable for leading Konoha. Danzo's expression grew even darker. Hiruzen was questioning his capabilities, insulting him. Hiruzen ignored Danzo's reaction. He had more pressing matters to attend to than Danzo's bruised ego. What were they talking about? Kushina asked Shin, curious. Shin, Kushina, and Mei Terumi hadn't left. They had witnessed Danzo's arrival, but they were too far away to hear the conversation. That idiot Danzo wants the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki in the Hokage position, Shin said to Kushina and Terumi Mei. He was genuinely astonished by Danzo's audacity. The man had done nothing during the crisis, and now he wanted a share of the power? I knew he was shameless, but not this shameless. I'm impressed, Kushina said, shaking her head. Akiko is dead, it seems only the two of us are left of the Uzumaki clan. Kushina's voice was subdued. Then we have to work hard, Shin said, winking at her suggestively. Kushina didn't understand at first, then her face turned bright pink as she realized what he meant. Shin, you jerk. Saying that, Kushina raised her fist and punched him playfully, but Shin caught her fist, gazing at her with mock affection. The originally shy and annoyed Kushina, looking at Shin's loving gaze, suddenly became embarrassed. Why are you looking at me like that? She asked, fidgeting slightly. Because I love you, Shin said with a smile, then kissed her gently. Hey! Am I invisible? Mei Terumi interjected, annoyed at being ignored while being force-fed their affection for each other. Kushina glared at Mei Terumi, her romantic moment ruined. She regretted bringing Mei along. Are we going back now? Kushina asked Shin. Yeah, but it's almost dawn. Let's have breakfast in Konoha first. Shin descended from the sky with Kushina and Mei Terumi, landing near the site of the battle. Hiruzen and the other shinobi had already left, but Danzo was still there, his expression stormy. Uzumaki Shin, what are you doing here? Danzo couldn't help but ask. Could it be that this Nine-Tails rampage was related to Uzumaki Shin? Shin glanced at him, sensing Danzo's suspicion. This had to be clarified. He wasn't going to take the blame for Obito's actions. Are you accusing me of attacking Konoha? Shin asked calmly, though his words carried an undercurrent of menace. Danzo felt a wave of pressure and instinctively touched his bandaged arm. Even with the Sharingan, he felt no safer. If I attacked Konoha, do you think Konoha would still exist? Shin took Kushina and Mei Terumi's hands and left. Shin had subtly trapped him in a genjutsu, a mental pressure that left the old warhawk shaken. Danzo believed Shin. It wasn't that he trusted Shin, but Shin had no reason to lie. If Shin had attacked, Konoha would be in ruins, not just heavily damaged. Several hours later, dawn broke, revealing the devastation wrought by the Nine-Tails. Fortunately, the tailed beast bomb hadn't hit the village directly, otherwise, Konoha would have been obliterated. A tailed beast bomb from the Nine-Tails could easily level mountains. Looks like we won't be finding anywhere to eat breakfast. Shin sighed, walking through Konoha's normally bustling food street. Though spared from the Nine-Tails' rampage, the area was deserted. The villagers were all taking refuge in the shelters. Who would open a shop at this time? We were idiots for even trying, Kushina said, smacking her forehead. She actually followed Shin in to eat breakfast. Konoha had just experienced a disaster. Who would have such a big heart to open up for business at this time? We? Did you just lump me in with you? Mei Terumi pointed at herself. Yeah, do you think you're smart? Kushina replied, looking at Mei Terumi. Actually, I realized that earlier, Mei Terumi admitted. Shin and Kushina exchanged a look, then simultaneously flicked Mei Terumi on the forehead. If you knew, why didn't you say anything? Were you just waiting to laugh at us? Shin and Kushina said in unison. Mei Terumi felt a surge of indignation. Back in Kirigakure, she was the one who did the bullying, now she was being ganged up on. You're ganging up on me. How shameless. Mei Terumi grumbled. Chapter 256, The Uchiha Clan's Bitter Pill. Let's go. Time to leave Konoha. After walking around the street, he didn't even see a single person. Shin couldn't help but sigh. Was a mere Nine-Tails attack enough to scare everyone into hiding? He went to Ichiraku Ramen to take a look. He thought that Uncle Ichiraku, who remained unflappable during Pain's assault, would be there, but the fact was that Shin was overthinking it. Shin had hoped to see the legendary Otsutsuki Tuchi, but it seemed he was just a ramen chef after all. Yamatsu Hirasaka. Shin opened a portal, taking Kushina and Mei Terumi with him. They could still make it back in time for Makoto's breakfast. Hiruzen wasn't aware of their departure, he was busy assessing the damage. The destroyed buildings were a minor issue. Money could fix that. Though Konoha's funds were low, the Land of Fire's daimyo would provide financial support. As the strongest military force in the Land of Fire, the daimyo would not be ambiguous about financial matters. The real loss was the shinobi who had died. The Third Shinobi World War had already weakened Konoha, and now, with the Nine-Tails attack and Minato's death, they had lost many of their strongest fighters. Hiruzen worried that other villages might exploit Konoha's vulnerability. He set that concern aside for the moment, summoning the village elders and clan heads. He announced his return as a Hokage and the upcoming funeral for Minato Namikaze. As the fourth Hokage, a hero who sacrificed his life for Konoha, Minato deserved the highest honors. Of course, a grand funeral wouldn't bring him back. Taking care of his son would be more meaningful. As the meeting concluded, Hiruzen's gaze turned to the current Uchiha clan head, Fugaku Uchiha. Fugaku, I expect an explanation. The other clan heads and elders looked at Fugaku, some people showed expressions of enjoying the show. The Nine-Tails seal had been broken by an Uchiha evidenced by the Sharingan seen in the Nine-Tails' eyes during the attack. Fugaku's face darkened. He knew this was coming. This matter would definitely be suspected to be related to their Uchiha clan. Fugaku knew his clan well, even he wasn't sure he could control the Nine-Tails, let alone the other Uchiha clan members. Sandame Hokage, this has nothing to do with the Uchiha clan. There are others with the Sharingan. Shin Uzumaki, for example. He's far more likely a suspect. Fugaku Uchiha stood up and said. This matter must be cleared up, otherwise the Uchiha clan would have a hard time in Konoha village in the future. And I also got the news before that Shin Uzumaki came to Konoha village yesterday. Hiruzen took a puff from his pipe. In fact, Hiruzen Sarutobi had also suspected Shin Uzumaki in his heart. However, the suspicion was quickly dismissed. If Shin had been involved, the attack wouldn't have ended so easily. The masked man yesterday didn't look like Shin Uzumaki either. His hair wasn't red, and he was wearing a mask. If it was Shin Uzumaki, then he probably wouldn't bother to hide at all if he wanted to deal with Konoha. Fugaku, if those words reached Shin's ears, do you think he'd pay the Uchiha clan a visit? Shikaku Nara asked calmly, looking at Fugaku. Fugaku Uchiha's face darkened, then he fell silent. To be honest, he was afraid of Shin. During the Second Shinobi World War, Shin had barged into enemy camps. He had the guts and the strength to do anything. The Uchiha clan is the prime suspect. I expect your full cooperation, Fugaku. Hiruzen's tone brooked no argument. He genuinely suspected the Uchiha clan's involvement. Fugaku had been a contender for the Hokage position, but Hiruzen had vetoed his candidacy. The Uchiha clan had been resentful and increasingly restless. Hiruzen's suspicion wasn't entirely baseless. Of course, he also harbored some prejudice against the Uchiha clan, just like Danzo. As Tobirama Senju's students, they'd both been influenced by his distrust of the Uchiha. Hiruzen wasn't as extreme as Danzo, but he had been slowly marginalizing the Uchiha clan, pushing them out of Konoha's power structure. The final decision was to relocate the Uchiha clan to Konoha's outskirts, away from the village center. Fugaku was furious, but he couldn't refuse. Even the radical Danzo suggested wiping out the Uchiha clan entirely, which almost made Fugaku lose it. He had to swallow this bitter pill. Within days, news of the Nine-Tails attack spread throughout the shinobi world. Hiruzen had tried to contain it, but such a major event couldn't be kept secret. Upon learning of Konoha's losses, the fourth Raikage saw an opportunity. Konoha was weakened, having lost their Hokage and many elite jonin. It was the perfect time to strike. Chapter 257, You were radiating dumb energy just now. In the land of whirlpools, oblivious to the turmoil in the outside world, Shin had a sudden inspiration. He wanted to create a puppet like Sasori's third Kazekage puppet. He'd used the third Raikage body, which he still had. Given the Raikage's incredible durability, a puppet made from his body would be far stronger than Sasori's masterpiece. Controlling it with chakra strings is too rubbish, Shin muttered, holding a black chakra receiver rod made from yin-yang release. He wanted to create puppets like the 6 Paths of Pain, not those manipulated with strings. However, Nagato's 6 Paths of Pain had a weakness: they couldn't stray too far from Nagato himself. Mine will definitely be better than Nagato's. As Shin said this, he stabbed the black receiver in his hand into the third Raikage's corpse. The rods themselves were powerful weapons, capable of sealing chakra points and disrupting a target's ability to mold chakra, especially effective against tailed beasts. Similar to the Hyuga clan's gentle fist, the rods could neutralize an opponent's chakra and even counter those reanimated with the Edo Tensei. Shin had imbued these rods with his will, allowing him to control the third Raikage's body. Nagato used similar rods, imbued with the outer path's power, to control his 6 Paths of Pain. He inserted 5 rods, 1 in each limb and 1 in the head, and the puppet was complete. The yin-yang release black receivers completely entered the third Raikage's body. From the outside, it was completely invisible. It wasn't like Nagato's, which had black receivers all over his head and face. Is that thing even useful? Kushina asked Shin. Kushina had been watching him tinker with the puppet for a while. She was getting impatient. She also wanted Shin to teach her would release ninjutsu, but Shin was busy with this thing. Useful? Good question. To be honest, not really. Shin shook his head. The puppet wouldn't increase his combat strength. Then why bother making it? I was bored. Shin had created the puppet on a whim. If Shin's actions were known to the fourth Raikage, he would probably ignore the difference in strength and come to find Shin to fight desperately. If you're bored, teach me would release. I can't wait to beat Tsunade with it. Kushina said, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. The thought of using a Senju clan Kekkai Genkai to defeat Tsunade was incredibly appealing. Although the Senju clan's true Kekkai Genkai was the Sage Body, the shinobi world considered would release their signature ability. Seeing Kushina radiating giddy excitement, Shin took a step back, afraid her goofiness might be contagious. What's wrong? Kushina glared at him, noticing his wary expression. You were radiating dumb energy just now. I didn't want to catch it, Shin said honestly. Ah, you're asking for a beating, Shin. If I don't beat you up today, I'll take your last name. Kushina yelled, charging at him. Even if you took my last name, you'd still be an Uzumaki. What's the difference? Shin dodged her attack, chuckling at her empty threat. He wondered why she always resorted to biting and pouncing. After chasing him for a while, Kushina, unable to catch him, huffed and sat down on the ground, defeated. Can't you just let me win for once? She grumbled. Nope. I don't like losing, Shin replied, sitting down beside her. Seeing him so close, Kushina's eyes lit up. She lunged at him. Thud. And face-planted on the ground. She had phased right through him. She scrambled up, glancing around to make sure no one had witnessed her embarrassing tumble. Fortunately, Makoto, Konan, and Tsunade weren't around. How did I pass through you? Is that a genjutsu? Nope. Spacetime ninjutsu. I can become intangible and immune to all attacks. Shin explained, though immune to all attacks wasn't entirely accurate. Techniques like Yamatsu Hirasaka, which allowed one to enter another dimension, or the ceiling jutsu, spatial lock, could counter it. That's amazing. Too bad I don't have a talent for spacetime ninjutsu, Kushina said, a bit dejected. Even if you did, you couldn't learn it, Shin said, shaking his head. Kamui was a Mangekyo Sharingan ability, not a ninjutsu. Even with a talent for spacetime ninjutsu, she wouldn't be able to learn it. As for developing a similar jutsu? Even Shin couldn't do that. Forget about that. I'll let you off the hook this time. Teach me wood release. I want to learn the wood human technique. Kushina, knowing she couldn't defeat him, graciously accepted defeat. Hold on. Let me test this puppet first. Shin looked at the third Reikage puppet. He hadn't had a chance to properly examine it earlier. He controlled the puppet, activating lightning release chakra mode, and various ninjutsu and taijutsu techniques the third Reikage had used in life. As expected, the puppet could use them all. Now for the main event. Shin's eyes transformed into the 9-tomo Rinnegan Seigen, and the puppet's eyes also shifted, though they only became a standard Rinnegan. Can't handle it, huh? Shin noted that the puppet's body couldn't withstand the full power of the 9-tomo Rinnegan Seigen, only the Rinnegan or Tenseigen individually. More useless than I thought. But with the Rinnegan's power, it's still decent. Shin had created the puppet on a whim, its usefulness was secondary. It could be a convenient errand boy. Chapter 258, Shall We Spar? Shin controlled the third Reikage puppet, sending it out of the Land of Whirlpools to gather intel. Although the Land of Whirlpools was peaceful, it was also isolated. Shin wanted to keep abreast of events in the shinobi world. The puppet would be his eyes and ears. It was controlled by Shin's will. What it saw and heard, Shin saw and heard. Distance wasn't an issue, unless the puppet went to the moon. It was a perfect, mobile spy, though not without drawbacks. Shin had to divert some of his attention to control it. This wasn't a problem for him, multitasking was easy. He could withdraw his control when the puppet wasn't needed, though it would become an inanimate corpse then. Therefore, when he withdrew the mind controlling the third Reikage in the future, he would also have to control the third Reikage to find a deserted place, so as not to be mistaken for a dead person and be buried. Having dispatched the puppet, Shin began teaching Kushina would release ninjutsu. In the original story, Hashirama Senju could seemingly use would release with a single hand seal, but in reality, it was more complex. Perhaps with mastery, a single seal would suffice, but Kushina wasn't there yet. Learning would release wasn't difficult as long as you had the Kekkai Genkai. Shin spent the day instructing Kushina, and by nightfall, she had learned the wood human technique and the wood dragon technique. As for other ninjutsu such as wood style, advent of a world of flowering trees, Kushina had already learned them completely before. It's getting dark. Let's head back. Shin pulled Kushina away. She seemed a bit too engrossed in her training. As they returned, they heard Tsunade's laughter echoing from inside the house. What's with Tsunade? Did something good happen? Shin wondered. No idea. She's probably just being silly, Kushina replied, though Shin couldn't help but recall how Kushina herself had been radiating goofy energy earlier. What are you looking at? Kushina glared at him, sensing his amusement. Just thinking how beautiful you are. Really? Kushina's face lit up, her suspicion forgotten. Shin pushed the door open with a smile and walked in. As expected, Kushina was easily fooled. Just a compliment could solve everything. Tsunade, we heard you laughing all the way outside. What's so funny? Shin asked Tsunade after entering the house. Seeing Shin come in, Tsunade stood up excitedly, and then came to Shin's side, tightly grabbing Shin's shoulders. Shin, I finally did it. I learned would release. Her excitement was understandable. She had put in so much effort. Finally seeing results was exhilarating. Calm down. I wasn't that excited when I learned it, Kushina said, trying to act like a seasoned veteran, though inwardly, she wasn't sure whether to be happy or disappointed for Tsunade. Kushina been looking forward to using would release to get back at Tsunade for all the childhood bullying, but now. Kushina, do you want me to punch you? Tsunade glared at her, annoyed by Kushina's condescending attitude. What? Just because you learned would release, you think you're hot stuff now? Kushina retorted, bristling. You've just learned would release. How many ninjutsu do you even know? Do you want to go outside and have a spar? Kushina was confident Tsunade couldn't match her would release skills. Sure. Why not? Tsunade wasn't backing down. Although she had learned it later than Kushina, she had spent years researching it. Except for the sage art techniques, she felt confident she could handle anything. Go spar outside. We're about to eat. Makoto and Conan emerged from the kitchen, carrying dishes laden with food. Let's do it tomorrow. If you lose, you have to call me Tsunade Wani-sama respectfully, Tsunade said, confident in her abilities. She'd always been able to suppress Kushina, she didn't think that had changed. Fine. I wouldn't want you to think I'm afraid of you. Kushina was equally confident. Hey! No stealing. Shin smacked Mei Terumi's hand with his chopsticks as she reached for a tempura. He then popped the tempura into his own mouth. You're one to talk, Mei Terumi said indignantly, slapping his arm lightly. Shin, unfazed by her slap, flicked her forehead in retaliation. Mei Terumi yelped, it actually hurt. She glared at him. How dare he hit a beautiful girl like her? You're about to cry from a flick? If I punched you, you'd probably bawl your eyes out, Shin teased with a smile. Mei Terumi fumed. He was a demon. If she could defeat him, she'd bite him to death. Shin chuckled. He enjoyed teasing Mei Terumi and watching her get angry. Her angry expression was really cute. If Mei Terumi knew Shin's evil thoughts, she would probably cry out loud. Chapter 259, Kushina vs. Tsunade. The next morning, Shin and Conan emerged from the same room together. Makoto and Mei Terumi, in the living room, exchanged knowing glances. Conan blushed and looked down, acutely aware of the implications. You two weren't exactly quiet last night, Mei Terumi teased, noticing Conan's embarrassment. Conan blushed even deeper but quickly schooled her expression into a mask of indifference. She knew Mei Terumi would continue teasing if she reacted. Where are Kushina and Tsunade? Still asleep? Shin asked Makoto. They're already up. Didn't they say they were going to spar? They're probably at it already, Makoto replied with a smile. And you didn't stop them? Shin looked at her, surprised. They wouldn't get hurt, and I couldn't stop them anyway, Makoto said with a shrug. Is that so? Shin gave her a dubious look. Although Makoto was gentle most of the time, she had a mischievous streak. Perhaps she was deliberately watching them fight. Shin, you don't trust me? Makoto asked, pouting slightly. Looking at Makoto's pouting and unhappy face, Shin found her a bit cute and couldn't help but walk over and give her a kiss. MNMNN. Makoto blushed, playfully punching him lightly. It wasn't that she was shy, but she was self-conscious in front of Conan and Mei Terumi. Mei Terumi watched Shin and Makoto, a strange feeling tightening in her chest. A pang of jealousy, perhaps? Could it be? I'm actually interested in this bully? She was shocked by the thought. No way, she definitely couldn't have feelings for this jerk who liked to bully her. She wasn't a masochist. Hey, what are you doing? Shin's voice startled her, pulling her out of her thoughts. Shin called out to Terumi Mei, who was immersed in her inner world. Looking at Shin, who was very close to her, Terumi Mei's face suddenly turned red, and she asked stammeringly, What? Why did your face suddenly turn red? Are you realizing how handsome I am? Shin asked with a smile. And no. Mei Terumi's denial was weak, even to her own ears. Though Shin was annoying, he was undeniably attractive. If only he'd stop teasing her. Let's go check on Kushina and Tsunade. Hopefully, they haven't sunk the land of whirlpools yet. Shin led Makoto, Konan, and Mei Terumi towards Kushina and Tsunade. His concern wasn't entirely a joke. If Kushina and Tsunade went all out, they could potentially sink the small island nation. Although Shin didn't know where Kushina and Tsunade were, Shin had left a marker on them. They're really fighting. Shin stared at the two colossal wooden figures battling each other. Kushina and Tsunade were each controlling a 100-meter-tall, wood human. The destructive power was immense. Each blow could shatter mountains. The surrounding area had been transformed into a basin. Is that wood release? Mei Terumi's jaw dropped. She suddenly regretted giving up on learning it. Amazing. Konan also stared, though she was less surprised than Mei Terumi. Having traveled with Shin, she'd seen incredible things. Makoto wasn't surprised either. Though she couldn't use wood release, she had the Susanoo, a worthy opponent for the wood human. With the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, she could manifest a perfect Susanoo, more than capable of handling the wood human. The reason why Madara Uchiha lost to Hashirama Senju's wood release was mainly that Hashirama Senju's Sage Art wood release was too abnormal. Shin, should we stop them? Makoto asked. Nah, let them have their fun, Shin replied, shaking his head. Kushina, your wood human can't beat mine. I'm suppressing you, Tsunade taunted. You're lying. I'm clearly winning. Kushina retorted. In reality, neither was winning. The two wood humans were evenly matched. Wood style, wood dragon jutsu. Wood style, wood dragon jutsu. Perhaps it was because of tacit understanding, Kushina and Tsunade used wood dragon technique together. The wood dragon jutsu, capable of absorbing chakra, had played a key role in Hashirama Senju's victory against Madara Uchiha and the Ninetales. However, with both of them using the same technique. Kushina's wood dragon coiled around Tsunade's wood human, absorbing its chakra, while Tsunade's wood dragon did the same to Kushina's wood human. Who's going to win? Mei Terumi asked. They'll be at it forever, Shin glanced at Mei Terumi and said. If they didn't get tired or hungry, they'd never reach a conclusion. They knew the same techniques, their chakra reserves were similar. There was no way to determine a victor. Unless they use other jutsu, wood release alone won't settle this. Makoto had also realized the stalemate. Not just them, but Kushina and Tsunade had also come to the same conclusion. Still, neither was willing to admit defeat. Boom! The two wood humans' fists collided, then both figures staggered back, their fists splintering and scattering wood chips everywhere. The damage quickly regenerated, just like the Susanoo. That punch could shatter a mountain, couldn't it? Mei Terumi said, awestruck. It could. It's about as strong as a perfect Susanoo. Makoto confirmed. The wood human's destructive power rivaled that of the perfect Susanoo. Makoto, with her perfect Susanoo, could level a mountain. The wood human could do the same. I wish I had a jutsu that powerful. That's not even ninjutsu anymore, it's practically a god art. Mei Terumi looked at Kushina and Tsunade with envy. Chapter 260, Would it kill you to compliment me? Shin looked at Mei Terumi's envious expression and patted her shoulder. Don't be too impressed. The wood human is powerful, but it has its weaknesses. Its massive size limited its mobility. The Susanoo shared the same weakness. Against a fast, agile opponent, landing a blow could be difficult. If you're fast enough, you can easily dodge its attacks. Shin said. How fast do I have to be? That punch could shatter a mountain. Can I even dodge that? Mei Terumi asked, a bit exasperated. That's a valid concern. But if you used Sage Mode and focused on evasion, you should be fine. Shin estimated that Mei Terumi, even with Sage Mode, would struggle to outrun the wood human, but escaping its attacks wouldn't be a problem. If you learned the Flying Thunder God technique, like Conan, you'd have no problem at all. Shin said. Mei Terumi glanced at Conan. I'm starting to think I'm the weakest here. Shin was in a league of his own. Mei Terumi didn't even know the extent of his power. According to Conan and the others' description, he was practically a god. Conan had the Flying Thunder God technique. Kushina and Tsunade had wood release. Mikoto had the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Compared to them, her Kekkei Genkai seemed underwhelming. Her pride instantly shattered. Shin looked at Mei strangely. Did she only realize now that she was the weakest? Mikoto, where are you going? Shin asked, noticing Mikoto leaving. Their fight is going nowhere. We can't just stand here and watch. Let's have a picnic. I'm going to get some supplies, Mikoto replied with a smile. I want grilled fish. Mei Terumi perked up, her earlier gloom forgotten. Since we're having a picnic, let's divide the tasks. Mei, you're on fish duty. Conan and I will hunt in the forest. Shin took Conan's hand and left. Mikoto went home to gather supplies, leaving Mei Terumi to head for the coast. The shore wasn't far, and with body flicker technique, Mei Terumi arrived quickly. Within minutes, they were ready. Shin had caught several plump rabbits, Conan had gathered wild vegetables. Mei Terumi returned with a dozen fish. Combined with the food Mikoto brought, it was a feast. Shin took charge of grilling the fish and meat, while Mikoto and Conan prepared the rest. Anything I can do? Mei Terumi asked, seeing she was the only one idle. Not really. Shin didn't trust her cooking skills. She wasn't quite dark cuisine level, but she was still a culinary disaster. Soon, the aroma of grilled food wafted across the training grounds, reaching Kushina and Tsunade, who stopped fighting. They hadn't eaten breakfast, they were starving. Truce? Kushina asked Tsunade. Sure. There's no point in continuing to fight. Tsunade agreed. They'd been fighting for hours with no clear victor, their chakra was depleted. It was time for a break. Why did you two stop? We were enjoying the show, Shin couldn't help but say when he saw Tsunade and Kushina come over. Why you were enjoying the show? I'll bite you to death. Kushina yelled, lunging at Shin. Stop, here's some grilled fish. Shin immediately handed the grilled fish he had just grilled to Kushina. Humph, for the sake of the grilled fish, I'll let you off the hook this time. Kushina took the grilled fish and started eating it happily. It was a familiar taste. It had been a long time since she had eaten the food made by Shin, especially the barbecue made by Shin. Shin, did you teach Tsunade the wood release ninjutsu? Kushina asked. Originally, Kushina thought that Tsunade still wouldn't know any wood release ninjutsu, so she thought her fight with Tsunade would be a sure win. No, she learned it herself. Tsunade has been researching wood release for so long, it's not easy to learn wood release ninjutsu. Shin replied. By the way, if you two want to spar in the future, do it somewhere else. Don't wreck the land of whirlpools. Shin looked at the massive crater they'd created. Yeah, you two practically caused an earthquake, Mikoto added. Did we? Kushina and Tsunade hadn't noticed, they'd been too focused on their fight. Look at that crater. Oops. Kushina stuck out her tongue sheepishly. I can't help it, I'm just too strong. Don't get cocky. You're not that strong yet. Shin said. Would it kill you to compliment me? Kushina glared at Shin, annoyed by his criticism. I'm not praising you because I don't want you to be too cocky, so you don't think you're invincible. You two chat slowly, we have eaten everything, Tsunade said to Shin and Kushina. Shin immediately turned his head and looked. Looking at the last meat skewer left, he was speechless. This is mine. Kushina snatched the last skewer. Guess I'll have to make my own. Shin sighed and grabbed some raw skewers, starting to grill them. It's so delicious. It feels even better than the grilled meat I ate at the restaurant in Konoha. If you open a barbecue restaurant, Shin, it will definitely be a hit, Meitarumi said. That wraps up this part of What If Copy System in Naruto. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.